More news at 11:30. More of the Rick Sanchez Show with Billy Corbin coming up. I'm Natalie Rodriguez, News Radio 610 WIOD.
For the second time in as many weeks, a federal judge in the state of Florida has struck down Florida's amendment banning same-sex marriage. In a Miami-Dade case, actually, first it was a Florida Keys almost 2 weeks ago, and in a Miami-Dade case, the judge wrote was actually a very touching decision that preventing same-sex couples from marrying serves only to hurt, to discriminate, to deprive same-sex couples and their families of equal dignity, to label and treat them as second-class citizens, and to deem them unworthy of participation in one of the fundamental institutions of our society. The judge even cited a landmark Supreme Court case, Loving versus Virginia, which is a 1967 case in which the court threw out all the state prohibitions against interracial marriage. This is really emerging, it seems, as one of the civil rights issues of our time. On ricksanchezshow.com, we're having a poll right now to see where you stand on same-sex marriage in the state of Florida here. And interestingly, our next guests are one of the 6 couples who are the plaintiffs in the litigation in Miami-Dade County. And I have to ask you, right off the bat, in 2008, in the state of Florida, we were allowed to vote on the ballot for a state constitutional amendment that defined marriage as strictly being between a man and a woman. And Florida, at the same time that the state came out and voted for one of the most liberal presidents in the history of America, we also voted to deny the rights, the civil rights, to a minority population in our state. And 62% of Floridians voted to support this traditional definition, the so-called traditional definition of marriage. Todd, Jeff, I have to ask you, how did you feel as longtime Floridians in 2008 when you saw the result of that amendment?
Well, I think it was very disheartening. Certainly, it doesn't feel good when your family is not respected like that. We, didn't think it was a great thing, but, I understand people, feel like the populace did vote for it. But one really great thing that I think is coming out of this process, and you're seeing it with judges' opinions across the states, is that people are really recognizing that marriage is such a fundamental right that is protected by the U.S. Constitution, and that people of all kinds should have equal protection, should have due process. So although it ended up on a referendum ballot in 2008, it really shouldn't have been. Things that are rights should never be put to a popular vote. It's one of the great things about how our founders, laid out the country so that minority populations could never be overrun by majority rule or as some would say, mob rule. And I think that, even though in 2008 62% may have supported it, if you were to take a poll today, that referendum wouldn't pass. People really changed their mind on this issue. They've come to see that this isn't about some nameless, faceless people. We're your neighbors, your family, your friends, the people you work with.
And we are taking a poll at ricksanchezshow.com if you'd like to call in, 866-610-6397 to get involved in the conversation. And I will say the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, representing the state of Florida, she did cite this particular vote and saying that the judge should respect the will of the state's voters. The judge wrote that fundamental constitutional rights are not subject to majority approval, that a state's constitution cannot insulate a law that otherwise violates the U.S. Constitution. And once again, twice in the last 2 weeks, Florida judges have said that Florida's same-sex marriage ban is unconstitutional, violates the equal protection and due process clauses. And there are another dozen states across the country where we've seen federal judges do likewise, and even DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, the federal law banning same-sex marriage, has also come under constitutional attack, so to speak, and sections of which have been found unconstitutional. I have to ask how you felt now on the flip side of the coin last Friday when you heard this decision.
Well, we felt, absolutely excited and elated. It is the first huge step for us to getting equality, for all of us, for us as a couple, and for our friends and colleagues in the LGBT community that can be treated fairly and be treated the same as our heterosexual counterparts.
Now, how long have you guys been together in a relationship?
11 years, about 11 and a half years, actually.
Wow, that's incredible. Congratulations on that alone. I think that's quite an accomplishment. I always ask people who say that they're against same-sex marriage if divorce should be legal. In fact, if divorce were illegal, would you want to get married? Because that's then you'd really have to stick it out, especially in this country. And you have a child.
Yes, we have a 4-year-old son.
Congratulations on that as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
And this issue came up yesterday, actually, when we were talking about medical marijuana in the state of Florida. We had a father on whose daughter suffers from hundreds of seizures a day, faces death literally by the hour, and needs medical marijuana for a better way of life. And people say, well, why don't you move to Colorado, for example, which, by the way, some parents have done. And what do you say as Floridians, as taxpayers, as residents, longtime residents here? What do you say to people? Say, well, why don't you this is a states' rights issue. Why don't you move to a state where gay marriage or same-sex marriage is allowed?
Well, a lot of people, had that idea, and well-meaning people who said, well, you could just go somewhere else. Well, if we just went somewhere else to get married and came back, Florida wouldn't recognize it. And we don't want to move. We have family here. We've been here a very long time. This is our home. This is where Blake's growing up, and he goes to school, and we really feel that, Florida will be a better place when marriage equality is, the law of the land, so to speak. So to stay where we live and to fight for something that we believe in is more important. Our business is here. Relationships are here. It just wouldn't make sense for us, to move somewhere else. And we didn't want to go somewhere else to get married, and then to have come back and find that our home, the state that we love, wouldn't recognize it. So we think that we need to stay and fight for our rights here.
Todd and Jeff Delmays, best of luck to you and your son, and congratulations on the recent win, and good luck moving forward.